When Halo 2 came out, people were absolutely mind blown at how many things were added. Dual wielding, vehicle hijacking, online multiplayer, it was an insane upgrade. But Bungie had to make another game to conclude this trilogy. And now that they had the power of a new console at their disposal with the Xbox 360, they had the power to do some wild things with the final entry. And those things are the things that we're going to look at today, on normal difficulty, as we usually do. None of the 360, of course. What do you think I am? A barbarian from 2007? We'll be looking at the PC version on the Master Chief Collection. A version that people have been begging for years because, spoiler alert, Halo 3 was so fucking good that people wanted to play it on PC just like the first two games. Even if the original PC ports were, awful, terrible garbage ass. I mean, this game has had so much hype surrounding it, it's honestly insane. Its very existence is a part of gaming history. But does it deserve the praise? Does it hold up? Let's find out, starting with how this teenager of a game presents itself. Now, if the upgrade from Halo CE to Halo 2 was staggering, this is going to knock you so hard onto your ass that you'll leave an imprint on the pavement because, my god, this game looks so much better than Halo 2, and it still looks really, really good. Now, the textures aren't all that sharp, yes, and sometimes the models can be pretty rough, and the lip syncing can sometimes be,
Heavy lift gear.
It's pretty bad sometimes. But the game's overall feel is great. You got shadows, you got great lighting, you got foliage that reacts to you, you got more particle effects, there's a crazy amount of stuff going on here. This was Bungie taking every advantage they could with the 360's tech, and they used it well. Does it stack up to games of today? Well, no, definitely not, but unlike Halo 1 and 2, which are stylish but rough, this game is still a joy to look at. The cinematics have also been beefed up, there's much more action going on, there's more dynamic angles, it's pretty great. Those awkward high school theater kids have finally gone on to full-blown acting school. They're still freshmen, but they're doing good. And where do these cutscenes take place? Environments, of course, and they're damn great. The forest in the first level is what's most talked about when talking about Halo 3's visuals, and for good reason. Looks really fucking good. But the other environments are all great to look at too. The desert and snowy tundras of the Ark, the rotten flesh-infested flood nest, the decimated city landscape, the high-tech alien design of Forerunner architecture, it's honestly amazing. I really think the only environment that doesn't hold up well is the military base in the second level. A lot of it is in close quarters, so you really just get to see how outdated the texture work is. There are also times in which the game models and the beautifully painted backgrounds, they don't mesh well. But it's not all that often. The game does keep to the style of the previous ones, polishing it up to really bring forth the details that Bungie would have included had they the tech at the time. The humans still have mostly grounded-looking weapons and vehicles, and the Covenants look more sleek and advanced. Though the new weapons and vehicles the Covenant have, which we'll get to, take on a bit more of a brutish appearance, which is appropriate considering that the brutes replace the elite's position in this game. I mean, I don't know what you expected. It's dirty, spiky, and it looks like it's barely held together, and still looks suitably alien. The detail on the armor of Master Chief, the elites, the brutes, it's all really well done. It's somewhat simple as far as sci-fi armor goes, but it's absolutely stylish. Every enemy in this game looks badass, from the grunts to the brutes to the hunters to the drones to all of the flood forms. And of course, importantly, all of these enemies are far more distinct from each other. Whereas we really only had color to distinguish certain units in the previous games and some minor changes in armor, there's no mistaking a brute chieftain for a brute miner, which really helps in terms of gameplay. Obligatory segue to sound because my god, the sound of this game is just phenomenal as always. The ambience you hear throughout the levels is fantastic, really making you feel like you're actually there. Wildlife sounds in the woods, howling icy winds, mechanical creaking inside a 600-year-old military base. There's so much detail here, it's incredible. Speaking of detail, there's just a bunch of little things that were thrown in there that were absolutely not needed, but they do so much more to add to the immersion. Like a crashed Pelican's radio having a transmission from UNSC forces asking if they're okay. Or the Arbiter shouting at enemies, telling them to reject the lies of the prophets, or, my personal favorite, enemies calling you out when you have a particularly powerful weapon like a sniper rifle or a gravity hammer. And the weapon sounds are, well, they're good, but honestly, some of them are not all that much better than Halo 2. They're all unique, which helps you tell them apart without needing to look at them, which is great, but some of them just feel a bit underwhelming. I think it's mainly the assault rifle. It sounds like a damn pea shooter, not a fully automatic rifle that's capable of shooting through alien armor. That doesn't mean they're bad, like I said, they're good, just not spectacular. Then there's the voice acting, which, to save a bit of time, I'll just say it's great. There's no new characters in this game, so it's all just the cast from the surviving characters of Halo 2, with a few exceptions. Miranda Keyes is voiced by Justice Bolding instead of Julie Benz. Honestly, I think she does a bit of a better job. I can't really put my finger on it, but she just seems to fit Miranda a little bit better. I may be biased because Halo 3 is the first Halo game I played, so I'm much more used to her voice. Regardless, she does a good job. The Prophet of Truth's Michael Wincott is replaced by Terrence Stamp, and, well, while Terrence doesn't do a bad job, he doesn't really fit Truth. Then again, I think this is partially due to how they rewrote his character. Truth in Halo 2 is conniving, calm, and level-headed. Truth here is,
And not even your demon will live to creep, blackened from its hole to mar the reflection of our passage.
He's not that. Still, that's more the fault of writing, not the voice acting. He's doing his best with what he can. Now the music, oh. Now that's something that's still god tier. While it sadly doesn't have any fun alt-rock tunes from its predecessor, the music that it does have is spectacular. Some of them are even callbacks or just straight up improved versions of songs from previous games. Every second of music in this soundtrack is phenomenal. Sure, some of them are just modernizations of old tracks, like I said, but it feels somewhat fitting here. Halo 3 is meant to be the conclusion of Master Chief's story, at least for 5 years. So it makes sense that it's taking from the past. Plus, there's still enough new stuff that you aren't gonna feel like you're just getting an HD recording of all the previous game soundtracks. From heroic to horrific, from serene to heart-pounding, the soundtrack continues to be one of the best characters in the entire Halo series. But even with audio and visual design as beautiful as this, the game needs good gameplay. To start things off, Halo 3 has the same health system as Halo 2. You've got rechargeable shield that protects you, and when it goes down, you can take a few more shots before you enter the forever sleep. Movement is very similar to Halo 2's. The move speed and jump height are pretty much the same, and the latter especially can really help you get out of combat. Jumping over cover and getting to high ground is even more viable here than it was in the previous game, and the AI will properly react to it. If they see you're trying to get above them, they'll try to get away from you so they can get a better shot without being in your immediate vicinity. The AI will also rush you if they know you're low at health, especially the brutes. Speaking of the brutes, like I said earlier, they're essentially the replacement for the elites in this game, playing the role of squad commanders and tougher enemies. Most of them don't have shields just like in Halo 2 and only have armor, so you can pop off their helmets for headshots, and honestly, they're a good bit easier than the elites if you ask me. Anyway, the biggest challenge you'll face are the brute chieftains. They run around with super heavy weapons and they have shields. Their armor is also special in the sense that grenades can't be stuck to it, which honestly I think is pretty fun. It forces you to think on your feet to defeat them rather than just using the tried and true method of yeeting stickies at tougher foes until only their body emerges from the blue smoke. And with these new scenarios to think on the fly, you've got a whole new set of tools to use. All of the weapons from the previous game, except the brute plasma rifle, have returned, as well as some new ones. We'll just go through the new ones here, starting with the humans. The assault rifle returns, though it's got just a bit over half the magazine capacity as Halo CE, and honestly, it's not as good. It's fine for smaller enemies, but since it can't hold as many bullets, and frankly sounds like a pea shooter, it's not that great. It's honestly the worst sounding gun in the game, but as an all-around tool, it's still pretty useful. The other human weapon is the Spartan Laser, which, by contrast, sounds fucking awesome. It's the most sci-fi human weapon. It charges up a beam of energy over a few seconds, and then anything that's in its path is immediately turned to dust. It's pretty sick. The Covenant have quite a few new weapons. Replacing the brute plasma rifle is the brute spiker. It shoots out, well, spikes. And rather than being a plasma weapon that overheats, it's a kinetic weapon that you reload. It's not spectacular, but it works. The Mauler is another new weapon, and it's basically a handheld shotgun, but nowhere near as powerful as the actual shotgun. It's decent in close encounters, but just like the Spiker, it's not too crazy. It sounds pretty good, though. The Gravity Hammer, though, oh boy. This isn't as badass as the one that Tartarus held in Halo 2, but you swing this thing down and it sends anything in the radius of its impact flying. It's extremely satisfying, not just from the impact and the damage it does, but the sound. Oh yeah, that's the good shit. There's two new types of grenades as well. Plasma and frags return, but you've also got spike grenades, which stick to walls more effectively and shoot out a bunch of spikes into your enemies. They're pretty great for taking down brutes. Then there's Incendiary Grenades. Throw these things and flames just everywhere. Just fire. It's really fun. You can hold 2 of each type of grenade, so you'll basically always have some sort of explosive ready. There's also turrets, both human and newly added Covenant plasma turrets. While they were pretty rare in the last game, they're more frequent here. The only problem is they can only go so far from side to side, and sometimes enemies are just out of that range. It can get really frustrating, like really annoying. Fucking pisses me off. I could just... Oh. Yeah, you can just rip a Gatling gun or plasma turret off its hinges if you want. Why? Because you're Master Chief. You can punch through the hulls of tanks and flip cars over with ease. Turret on a tripod? Fuck you, you're a regular gun now. The only downside of ripping a turret off is that it makes you quite slow, and it also limits the amount of ammo it has. On a stand, a turret has infinite ammo. Off, it only has 200 shots. They aren't the only heavy-duty weapons, though. There's also the Flamethrower, which, well, it does what it says on the tin. I don't know what else you expected. There's also the missile pod, which launches missiles and can lock onto any enemy vehicle, though it doesn't really appear all that much in the campaign, and it's primarily used in multiplayer. Still, these heavy-duty weapons are a great new addition to the sandbox. Speaking of additions to the sandbox, there's a whole new element: equipment. Equipment are single-use items that you can find either laying around the map or off certain enemies' bodies. You'll most commonly find them on brutes. The bubble shield throws down a shield that, while most things can pass through, projectiles like bullets and grenades can't. They bounce right off. This isn't limited to the outside, though. If you're inside, you can't just shoot right out of this thing. You can't go gun-wielding turtle on your enemies. The deployable cover has similar use, but it only works in a short line. However, it also prevents things from walking through it, and, while the bubble shield has a time limit, the deployable cover lasts until destroyed. The gravity lift propels anything that gets in its well upwards, making it the prime tool to get to a vantage point. The regeneration field recharges the shields and health of anyone in its radius. Anyone. This means you and enemies. The power drain acts as a sort of EMP. Throw it and it'll drain the shield of anything in its radius, as well as deactivate any vehicles that get caught in its field. It's a real go-to for offensive plays. Active camo turns you invisible as long as you aren't firing your weapon, perfect for getting some good sneak attacks in. The trip mine will blow up when anything stands on it, but it can also be detonated by shooting at it, which can be pretty damn effective with some good placement. Invincibility makes you invincible. That's it. There's also the auto turret, but it feels like this thing's range is shorter than my dick. And that's saying something. Flare creates a blinding light, but it doesn't really seem like it's all that useful against enemies. More like it's useful against you. Similar with the radar jammer, which creates a bunch of extra red dots on your motion tracker, messing it up. It's not really something for you to use, at least not in campaign, but for the enemies to use. Because yes, the enemies will use these. Brutes will make use of them, and they can be pretty smart about it sometimes. And then there's the vehicles. The humans get 2 new vehicles. The first being the Mongoose, a small 2-seater ATV that can really zip and zoom around at high speeds and is great when paired with someone on the back to shoot. It feels really good to drive around in, and you can get some pretty sick air. The Hornet is the first dedicated human flying vehicle. Basically, a hovercraft with a machine gun and rockets on the front, and room for 2 people to sit on the sides. It's honestly pretty fun to fly around, and it handles decently enough. Sure, it's a bit unwieldy, but it's a helicopter. A future helicopter. The Covenant get the Brute Chopper, a motorcycle with guns on the front, which is basically the Brute version of a Ghost. It sacrifices speed for bigger guns and the ability to blow anything it slams into the side of with a boost to the fuck up. It's pretty rad, I can't lie. Then we've got the Prowler. It replaces the Spectre in this game, and it's not really as fun. Sure, the Spectre could have used some more work, but remember how I said the ability to move from side to side and boost kept it from being a Warthog with a Covenant skin? Well, this is basically just that. Despite floating, it can't strafe, and it's got no boost. Sure, it's stable and fast, but the uniqueness of the Spectre is lost. The last one is only usable in 1 level in multiplayer. The Elephant. It's a big-ass mobile command center that has a Mongoose spawn on it, and it has 2 turrets. It's not really useful, but it's damn fun. And those are just the new vehicles. All the previous ones have seen their improvements. Nothing crazy, just a few handling tweaks. And yeah, they're all great. But how do these work in the campaign? Well, let's talk about that. So the game actually flips things around this time with Sierra 117. It starts in a jungle rather than a tightly compacted space station or spaceship. It's got some narrow areas, but there's actually quite a few arenas to do battle in, with plenty of natural cover and some more industrial areas later on into the level to give you a more familiar feeling. It's a good way to introduce you to equipment, how it works, its best uses, all while fighting familiar enemies in a damn beautiful environment. It's also just Bungie flexing how hard they can use the Xbox 360 to make the game look kick-ass, because fuck, this level still looks really nice. The second level, Crow's Nest, is even more familiar. Tight corridors, a few arenas, and this is where you get introduced to some more equipment and the turrets. And hey, what's better to introduce you to turrets than some hallways that you can just riddle with bullets and plasma bolts? The only downside to this level is that it shows its age with the texture work pretty badly, but design-wise, it's really good. Then we get to the first driving level on the Salvo Highway, and this is where you can really see the AI improvements Bungie made. Sure, it's been smarter all throughout the game, but in the previous games, there were never really many segments where friendly and enemy AI were driving vehicles together. Here, you drive through the ruins of outposts with some damn fine scenery and having multiple encounters with enemy vehicles. Brute choppers are introduced here as well. Marines are driving around in them, and some warthogs alongside you. Covenant forces will try and flank you in larger areas, and you'll have to get out of your vehicle to fight on foot at times to keep things changing. And those on-foot encounters are great too, the first of which forces you to do battle with a Wraith without a vehicle, as well as hordes of Covenant infantry. It's such a fun level, how much better can you get? The answer is, a lot fucking better. Because the next level, the Storm, starts off with some pretty tight corridors, but you've got a Warthog guiding you through. Open up the doors and let the Marines just start mowing down grunts while you go to the upper levels and take care of the brutes. But then you get to a big open area where you need to take out some anti-air Wraiths so you can call in some reinforcements. And you can do this by just numing around in a ghost and splattering enemies before you board the Wraiths and just beat the fuck out of them. Then it's another hallway before you get introduced to the Mongoose and can stage an assault on the Covenant AA forces with some Marines with rocket launchers. Drive around and blow up some cubbies. Easy peasy. What's next?
Scarab!
Oh, a Scarab? This shouldn't be too... Oh, it's getting close. What the fuck? Yeah, that Scarab fight from Halo 2? Bullshit. Stupid. Nothing compared to this. This giant walking tank is a very real, very deadly threat with a cannon that's pointed directly at you and with legs that see you as a literal scarab to be crushed beneath them. It's giant, it's menacing, it sounds fucking awesome, and there's actually a lot more to taking it down than in Halo 2. Now you have to actually force the thing to the ground, firing explosives or other weapons into the legs of it before it temporarily deactivates, bringing it close enough to the ground so you can hop aboard. Then you can fight the crew, get to the rear of it, destroy the core. You can't just walk out of this thing. Oh, no. You need to run, because that explosion could very well kill you if you're too close. Hop out, get to a safe distance, and watch the fireworks. This is actually a really awesome fight and makes the Scarab something of a boss to deal with. You have to use your environment to maneuver around it, know when to take your shots, know when it's got its attention focused on your allies, and be quick enough to hop onto it because after a certain time, it stands back up. And if you're not on it, fuck you, knock it down again. Anyway, after that kick-ass battle, you fight your way through a few more arenas, one of which even has civilians with regular pistols. It's honestly a pretty disturbing thing to see, just these regular people forced to fight for their lives against some exponentially more powerful alien force. But they do get a lot more hopeful once you come to the field, which is nice. So you fight alongside them and some Marines, do battle with some hunters, then charge up a hill to disable the Covenant AA gun. But then, something happens. A flood-infected ship arrives on Earth in the next level, Floodgate. Big shock. And this is how they get reintroduced to you. And yeah, they're disturbing. You even see another crazed Marine like you did in Halo CE, rambling to himself, but instead of shooting you, he's contemplating shooting himself. Yeah, it's a nice reminder as to how horrifying these things are. And they've got some new forms to take on. Combat forms which can transform into several different enemy types. Beefy, hulking tank enemies, foes that can skitter up to you quickly, and long-range forms that can climb onto walls and riddle you with spikes. They're actually really cool, as an encounter can change on the fly from a fight with some zombies swarming you to a desperate run for cover to avoid getting impaled by the enemies clinging to the walls. So after fighting your way through them, you move on to another real big mission, the Ark. After starting this mission by combating some Covenant forces, you find yourself ambushed by brute Prowlers. Thankfully, you've got a rocket launcher that is the rock to all of these brutes' birds. They've politely left their Prowlers for you so you can use them to drive through these damn beautiful canyons and gun down Covenant forces and once again have to take out some AA Wraiths. Then you can hop in a Warthog or keep the Prowler, or just run in, and clear a landing zone for UNSC forces to drop in some new toys. These toys being tanks. And then it's just a full-blown assault on Covenant forces. Yeah, remember when Bungie was flexing AI capabilities beforehand? Well, they made that flex look like a whimper compared to all this. Scorpions, warthogs, ghosts, wraiths, prowlers, phantoms, all moving around in this colossal battle between humanity and the Covenant in one hell of a fight that has a brief break to have you run through a forerunner structure to allow UNSC forces to go through, right before you hop into a Gauss Warthog and continue the assault, breaking your way through Covenant armor lines before you get to another Scarab. This time, though, it's in an open field, with the only real cover being one building in the middle. Now you've really got to put your driving skills to the test to make sure the beam doesn't send you into an early grave. And yeah, fighting a Scarab is still fun. The rest of the level has you fighting up and through a forerunner structure, taking down brute positions before you actually end up in basically Fight Club. Yeah, this is the little thing here, but I want to talk about it. A bunch of brutes have formed a ring around a chieftain who's demanding you fight him. And yeah, you can just 1v1 this chieftain while the brutes just watch. It's a really little thing, but it makes you feel more real. This brute is face to face with a legendary demon. He's gonna try and solo him, show how badass he is. That's just such a neat little detail that I just needed to talk about it. When you eventually win, though, the rest of the brutes and some hidden jackals attack you, so you gotta dispatch them. And then you get to the best mission, the Covenant. And yeah, there's 2 missions after this, but this is the final level. Design-wise, at least, it has everything. It starts off with an awesome assault on the beach, giving you the new Spartan Laser to wreak some havoc before you're given a Warthog and need to drive through Covenant forces and soften them up. You then assault a Forerunner tower and clean out some brute forces before you return to the beachhead and get your first taste of flying with the Hornet. You soar around the sky, taking out wraiths, banshees, phantoms, ground troops. It's a hell of a spectacle and it's fun as shit. It gives you some real dogfighting as well as some air-to-ground combat. After another assault on a Forerunner tower and a brief encounter with the Flood, you hop in another vehicle and fight your way through a few more forces before you're just a few feet away from your goal. And then... ah, fuck yeah. Soaring around the sky, shooting at some Scarab legs, jumping aboard them and frantically trying to destroy one Scarab before the other can destroy your Hornet and leave you helpless on the battlefield? Oh, yes. Then you team up with the Flood, more on that later, and take down the Covenant, and then the Flood, of course, betrays you, and you need to fight your way back through them. Why is this the last level? Well, like I said, it's got everything. Vehicle combat, tight corridors, big open areas, taking an already tough enemy and doubling it, aerial combat, Covenant, Flood, small skirmishes, massive battles. It's a final gauntlet of all your abilities. It's telling you, hey, through these games, you've been fighting. Show me you haven't been on autopilot. Show me you've been paying attention. Couple that with the fact that this level has some of the best music in any game, not just any Halo game, any game, with some truly cinematic moments, and you have yourself the de facto final level. It is, without a shadow of a doubt, my favorite level in the entire game. It's a damn shame that Cortana is the level that follows, though. This level has you fighting on a fully infested High Charity. The walls are fleshy, there's corpses and gore everywhere, it's horrifying. The tight quarters can make battles with the Flood really intense, especially since there's so many of them and they can just overwhelm you easily. It's a good level, but it has one of the worst things in the Halo series. Okay, not that, but I really hate that too. Something I haven't touched on is that throughout the game, you get interrupted by Cortana or the Gravemind. They'll slow your move speed to a crawl and talk to you. Thematically, it can be kinda cool, but it really breaks the flow of the gameplay and honestly gets annoying pretty damn quickly. Now try running through this level where it happens so fucking often. It's something that really bogs down this campaign. It's not a huge issue, but it's a real pain in the ass. The actual final level, Halo, is pretty great though. It's got you running up a Forerunner spire and battling literally endless hordes of the Flood, really showing how relentless they are to stop you at this point. You only get a reprieve after defending a door long enough to be opened. And even then, it's a hell of an ordeal to defend yourself. One little thing to note, the game glitched and the only way for me to progress through this door was to kill Johnson up on the ridge there. He's supposed to jump down, but he didn't. Killing him fixed it though. Not sure if this was a Master Chief Collection glitch or if they were just so faithful to the original that they included this glitch. Either way, you get to a boss fight where you have to laser a light bulb and then you have to escape the Halo ring as it's firing and tearing itself apart. Fight your way through some Flood, hop in a Warthog, drive through this chaos. Yeah, it's a reference to the ending of Halo 1, but it feels so much better with the improved driving. The fact that you don't have a time limit is a good thing and a bad thing. Sure, it makes it a bit easier, but it takes away that sense of urgency that the original final level had. Still, it's a feast for the senses to watch and listen to, especially with the final jump. And then, game over. In short, the campaign is amazing. The improved weapons sandbox gives you so many new tools to dispatch enemies, and it feels like every arena was designed with these in mind. Not only that, but the AI is programmed to use it decently enough. Yeah, and the last 2 levels fall a bit short compared to the Covenant, but they're still damn well designed and fun. But wait, what about the story of Halo 3?
I am truth, the voice of the Covenant.
Alright, you know the drill. Dumb roundup first, spoilers abound, go here if you don't want them. Countdown's done, we're going now. Mr. Chef yeets himself out of the alien triangle from the last game, and Johnny finds him and picks him up. Archibald shows up and Chief tries to kill him, but Johnny's like, nah, he's chill now. And you go into the woods to kill some gorillas before Johnny's captured. You save him before going to a bunker with Megan, and then learn that the Jehovah's Witnesses have started using more aggressive tactics. So you kick him out and leave no trace of where you were. Don't let him track you down. You away real quick like to escape before you're told that the alien Boomer is still on the triangle and landed in Africa, so you gotta go hunt him down after blowing up some alien floaty tanks. Cause fuck him. The Boomer escapes and Chief and Archie have to play exterminator because the Grave Man and the Nasty Boys have shown up, and apparently your holographic GF came with them. The light bulb finds you there and he yoinks you onto the alien lizard ship cause they're alright now. The light bulb fixes your GF, but it's actually just a voicemail telling you about the thing you gotta find to stop the Boomer. So you hunt down the Boomer to Noah's Ark, and the light bulb tells you where he is. You find the Boomer after he's kidnapped Johnny, and Megan tries to save him, but she gets turned into a porcupine. The bugs help you out a bit because they don't like the Boomer either. Archmage stabs the Boomer, and the Gravemind is like, filthy prank! And tries to kill you. You find out where your real holographic GF is and go save her, running out before you gotta hop off the new hula hoop the Boomer made to blow it up and kill the Nasty Boys. The light bulb doesn't like this and then zaps Johnny because he's a dick, and then you kill the light bulb. Johnny dies and you turn on the space hula hoop before you vroom away. Archer makes it home, but Chef is lost in space. You want the real story? Well, here it is. Halo 3 takes place soon after the events of Halo 2. Like, real soon. Chief jumps off of the Forerunner Dreadnought, assumedly after causing some havoc, and falls to Earth. Johnson finds him and gets him back on his feet before the Arbiter shows up in active camouflage. Chief jumps to kill him, not knowing of the new alliance formed between humanity and the elites, but is stopped by Johnson, who doesn't want them killing each other. And the Arbiter says,
"Were it so easy."
The team then move up through the jungle to meet up with some Marines and dispatch Covenant forces. Johnson is captured, but is rescued by Chief and the Arbiter before they all move up to the Crow's Nest, a military base from the 20th century. While you meet up with Commander Miranda Keyes and debrief with Lord Hood, Truth interrupts with a broadcast, ranting and raving about how the galaxy shall be cleansed in the sacred fire of Halo, and that all the non-believers will be burned. This is followed up by an assault on the Crow's Nest, where you have to hold off Covenant forces long enough for the wounded to be evacuated, and a bomb is set up to kill all the Covenant forces after you've escaped. However, just as you're leaving, the bomb is disarmed and you need to run back and rearm it. Once you do, you regroup with UNSC forces and prepare for an assault on the Forerunner Dreadnought, where Truth is still hiding, apparently digging for something in the desert. Assumedly, the Ark. But first, you need to take down some Covenant AA guns. It's a tough battle, but eventually you and the Arbiter take down all of their AA forces and bear witness to UNSC forces bombarding the Dreadnought with guns. However, it's not enough. A slipspace portal opens, allowing Truth to escape the Ark where he can fire the rest of the Halo rings, while simultaneously destroying a good chunk of the UNSC's navy. While trying to regroup though, a flood-infested ship enters the atmosphere and crashes down. You fight through flood forces and meet up with some elites who help you take them down as much as they can. While fighting, you learn that Cortana is apparently on the crashed ship, so you rush to save her. When you find her, she deactivates after only saying a few words. It's then that 343 Guilty Spark appears, offering to repair Cortana. Chief is distrustful at first, but realizes there's no other option. That, and without the ring, Guilty Spark doesn't seem nearly as malevolent. You take her to the Shadow of Intent, a ship commanded by the now shipmaster Ratas Va-Doom, as elite forces glass the surrounding area. Cortana is repaired, and it's revealed that it's just a message, warning that a fully infested High Charity is on its way, but that there's a way to stop the flood without firing all the Halo rings, to be found on the Ark. Ratas is eager to go through with this plan, but Lord Hood seems rather reluctant, even distrusting Ratas for glassing parts of the continent. He insists it was only to make sure the flood were completely eradicated, but Lord Hood doesn't seem so sure that Cortana is right, that she may be too damaged. But Miranda and the Arbiter convince him that they can't just stay and fight on Earth. They'll be eradicated. They need to take a chance or lose everything. He eventually agrees, and a joint operation commences. Johnson takes some Covenant weapons over to some Marines, while the Arbiter takes some UNSC weapons to the elites. It's a great scene that shows the real unity that's starting to form between these once bitter enemies. It may be out of necessity and not real brotherhood, but it's a show that there's no doubts anymore. They're in this together. Not for humanity, not for the elites, but for the galaxy. Side note, this is a scene that's made even better that in the extended universe, you find out elites canonically hate human weapons, but there they are. You follow Truth through the portal and mount a ground assault while Ritas stays in space to be an absolute fucking Chad.
Group ships, staggered line, shipmaster. They outnumber us 3-1.
Then it is an even fight.
All cruisers fire at will. Burn their mongrel hides.
You land on whatever place Truth has brought you to, which is apparently far, far away from the Milky Way galaxy. You fight your way through Covenant forces to clear a landing zone for the Forward Unto Dawn to land a proper assault force. You break through Covenant forces holding a Forerunner complex and discover, through 343 Guilty Spark, that you're actually on the Ark. This is where Truth can activate the Halo rings. You battle through some counterattacking Covenant forces and meet up with Johnson, who brings you out of the complex and back to the UNSC fleet, where you prepare one final assault against Truth in the control room of the Ark. You land on the beach and deactivate one of the towers keeping a shield up, while the Arbiter and his troops take out another. Johnson was supposed to deactivate the last one, but something went wrong, so you and the elites have to deactivate it yourself. As you do, the infested High Charity enters through a slipspace portal, and you need to fight off a small force of Flood before you regroup with the elites and the Marines and make your final assault. After an epic final battle, you enter the control room. During this, it's revealed that Truth captured Johnson and is trying to force him to activate the Halos. Miranda bursts through the window in a pelican and fights off a few brutes as she tries to rescue Johnson. She realizes she can't fight them all off, so in order to prevent the rings from being activated, she and Johnson agree that she'll kill him and then herself. A pretty grim fucking outcome, but it doesn't come to be either way. Truth kills Miranda with a spiker before Johnson can get shot, and then forces Johnson to activate the Halo rings before you and the Arbiter make your way up. Just as you're about to attack, the Flood show up. The Gravemind speaks through them and tells you not to attack, but to let them guide you to Truth. Yeah, the Gravemind teams up with you. Similar to Halo 2 though, it's out of pure necessity. It knows that you can take down Truth and, without you, the rings will wipe out all life in the galaxy, leaving the Flood to starve to death. After you fight your way through the last of Truth's forces, you find Johnson holding Miranda's corpse while Truth is starting to be assimilated by the Flood. The Arbiter demands that the Gravemind release him so that he can get his revenge on the Prophet. Chief deactivates the rings before Arbiter kills Truth. Gravemind then, of course, turns on you. Johnson is able to escape in the Pelican, but you and the Arbiter have to fight your way out. As you do, you're given a revelation. Another Halo ring was built to replace the one destroyed in the first game. You realize that if you activate this Halo ring in this corner of the universe far away from the Milky Way, it could destroy the Flood. It would kill everything around them and leave them completely trapped, light years away from any sort of life. But how do you light it? Well, you gotta go to High Charity for that, battling your way through the infested Holy City and trying to find Cortana while the Gravemind taunts you. Once you find her, you have honestly a pretty touching reunion with her before Cortana reveals that she kept the index from the first Halo ring, giving you a way to activate this new one. So you, Cortana, Johnson, and the Arbiter all go onto the new Halo ring to activate it. You fight through the Flood until you get to the control room and find that Guilty Spark is preparing the final stages of the ring. He's quite upset to learn that you want to fire it now though, as firing it will destroy the ring, seeing as it's not fully built yet. In a rage, he blasts Johnson, nearly killing him and corners you. Johnson weakens him with a Spartan Laser long enough for you to take it and kill Guilty Spark. Johnson then passes away, quite sadly, and you activate the Halo rings. You and the Arbiter then rush to escape, jumping onto the Forward Unto Dawn and barely making it out. Arbiter runs to the helm and sets a course towards Earth while Chief and Cortana remain in the back. Then you cut back to Earth. The war is over. The hill has been dedicated to the heroes of the UNSC who fought and died to protect humanity. It's then revealed that Master Chief was one of those that died. Only half of the Forward Unto Dawn made it back to Earth. The half with the Arbiter, who's attending the ceremony out of a sign of respect. Lord Hood delivers a speech expressing how unbelievable it is that the Chief is dead, right before the Arbiter says,
Were it so easy.
Echoing what he said to Chief at the start of the game. Arbiter then returns to the Shadow of Intent, and he, Ritas, and all the other elites head back home to Sang Helios. But there's one final cutscene. Chief and Cortana adrift in space, completely alone and far from any and all UNSC forces, or really anybody they can communicate with. They briefly reflect on how, after all this time, it's finally over. Cortana sets out a distress call while Chief slips into a cryostasis pod. the same kind that he emerged from at the beginning of Halo 1. He then goes to sleep, and we get the bittersweet ending to Master Chief's tale. Unless you beat it on Legendary, which shows that the pair is actually drifting towards something. But that's for another time. This time, though, we've got one hell of a story. It really does feel like the conclusion to an epic trilogy. So many things come together. The Arbiter finally gets his vengeance on Truth, Cortana is rescued, the Flood is defeated, all of it's wrapped up pretty nicely. And none of it's done in a half-assed way either. The Covenant is defeated with a massive joint assault from UNSC and elite forces. Cortana is rescued by Chief charging his way through a massive flood-infested city. The Flood is defeated by actually just firing a Halo ring and escaping through an explosive Warthog drive. They really went all out to make sure this game felt like the ending we deserved. There is also one more very crucial detail that relates to the human Forerunner link that's been building up. Truth went to Earth so he could activate a portal to the Ark. The Forerunners left a portal to the control center of the entire Halo array on humanity's homeworld. Now, it's not explicitly told in-game, but humanity are the descendants of the Forerunners. There's some sort of biological link between them. Maybe they are the direct descendants of them. Maybe they just implanted Forerunner DNA into humanity when they had the galaxy repopulated. Maybe, just kidding, that's what they were building up, but all that changes in Halo 4, but that's something for the future. Halo 4, for me to talk about it. It's not Halo 3. We're moving on. Let's move on to characters! To prevent this video from being even longer, I'll just say that, yeah, all the characters are great, as to be expected. Ratas is a Chad, Johnson's a Chad, Miranda is a Stacy, Hood isn't a full-blown Chad, but he's cool. Guilty Spark is fun but insane. Chief, though, he's honestly kinda broken. There's a lot of subtle details throughout the game. I said subtle, that imply that Chief really feels somewhat lost without Cortana, and his reunion with her shows that he's genuinely relieved and happy to have her back with him. In the same vein, Cortana is somewhat broken after having been assumedly interrogated by the Gravemind, but she's definitely happy to be with Chief again, having missed him quite a bit as well. The Arbiter is mostly the same, though as the game goes on, you can tell he's gaining more respect for humanity. He openly expresses sorrow for Johnson's death and even some remorse for Chief's. If nothing else, he's definitely grown to appreciate him more than he did in Halo 2. Truth is, yeah, he's not the same. He's not the conniving villain from the last game, he's just a mustache-twirling villain. It's kind of a shame that they reduced him to being such a madman, though I suppose there is an argument that, being so close to his goal and in total control of the Covenant, he's gone mad with power. Still, he's not quite as good of a villain. And to kind of summarize this, to keep this from being an essay like Halo 2's video was, I'm just going to summarize some of my favorite moments throughout the game. The Arbiter's "were it so easy" line going from "were it so easy I'd be dead a long time ago" to "were it so easy he'd be dead a long time ago" just shows his growth as a character even more. Keyes and Johnson willing to sacrifice themselves really shows how desperate things are in this final moment. And it shows their selflessness. They're not doing this for them, but for the galaxy. Chief and Cortana's reunion was genuinely beautiful, showing that the two of them are more than just combat partners. They have a genuine bond and they both felt incomplete without each other. I really could go on a lot longer about the campaign, but we really gotta get to multiplayer at this point. I actually did play this multiplayer when it was relevant, so I do remember it being a damn fun time with some great map design and some really fun antics going on in matches. Is that the case? Hell yeah, it's the case. I mean, it's more Halo. What do you want me to say? The map designs are great? Yeah, they've still got variety in the arenas and power weapons that are placed strategically. The balance is good? Yeah, everyone starts with the same weapons and has an equal chance of getting power weapons. Power-ups still around? Yeah, you can find them on maps and go invisible or get beefy. It sounds good? Fuck yeah. Fuck you. There's 2 other videos in which I explain all that. We're skipping to the new stuff. The equipment. Now this actually changes up the multiplayer quite a bit, and in a good way. It's scattered around maps the same way weapons are, and you can pick them up as long as you don't have any equipment on you already. You can use most of the equipment that you could in the campaign, save for a few, like active camo or invincibility, for example. So if you're in an open field and getting shot at, you can drop a bubble shield and keep yourself alive. If you're in a tight corridor and outgunned, you can throw down a regeneration field and turn the tide in your favor. The equipment is honestly a great new addition to the sandbox because it allows players to gain an upper hand in an otherwise unwinnable scenario, even turning it around in their favor if they use it correctly. And they're not reusable. Just like in campaign, once you use it, that's it. So you'll need to go looking for the equipment again if you want to use it again. It keeps players from abusing some of the more useful tools while making sure other players get the chance to use them as well. It's a great way to balance the fights. I honestly don't know what else to say here. Everything I could say about the maps and the way the multiplayer is balanced was said in my Halo 2 video. It's got great maps, a great weapon sandbox, every map has arenas where multiple playstyles can shine, you can be an elite, it's fucking fun. Oh yeah, and you can customize your Spartan or elite beyond just their color. There's a few different helmet, shoulder, and chest plate variants for you to use to make your character look more distinct. What else? Oh, the energy sword is nerfed, so it has actual ammo and doesn't have the range of a sniper rifle. The spawns are a bit better. Alright, I'm honestly struggling to think of new stuff to talk about. It's more Halo, it's fucking good, play it. Fuck you. And then there's stuff that, to keep this video from getting longer, I'm just not gonna put into its own section. Theater mode. It allows you to watch playbacks of your multiplayer matches from your perspective, others' perspectives, or a free camera. It's pretty neat, and you can capture some great highlights with it. Many machinima have been made with this glorious addition. It's not even something Bungie needed to add on. They were just like, yep, this sounds cool. Let's put it in. For no other reason other than, it's great. And of course, Forge. Forge lets you create your own custom maps using assets they provide to you. Vehicles, weapons, building parts, equipment spawns, it's awesome. People have gotten really creative with these things. Some make some pretty interesting multiplayer maps. Some make insane custom game modes. Some people make dicks. Some people make racetracks. It's just a whole mess of fun. And this is the kind of stuff that made Halo 3 a far more community-oriented game. Like, to an insane degree. File sharing, where you could upload your creations and videos and stuff, was huge. This stuff was insane at the time, and even now, it's still really cool to have and a great way to keep the community going. And that's all I honestly have to say about this game. Was it worth its legendary status in 2007 with its thrilling gunplay, stellar soundtrack, great story, balanced multiplayer, beautiful world, and community features? Hell yeah. Is it still worthy of its legendary status 13 years later? Abso-fucking-lutely. It holds up spectacularly well, and despite a few flaws like some less than exciting sound effects, dated textures, and a few other minor gripes, it's still a blast to pick up and play. The times I've spent with this game are fantastic. Is it nostalgia talking? Maybe a little bit, but even with nostalgia, I'm usually able to go back to old games and see if they have some flaws in them. In Halo 3, I see them, but they don't outweigh the positives even a little bit. It's a true testament to game design that this game holds up so well so many years later. And Bungie still wasn't done yet, and that's what we'll talk about next time. I'll see you then.